Women have the power to transform this world. We can end crime and violence if we all agree to do one thing: share. Let's share our wisdom, share our time, share our talents, share our finances, but most of all, let's share our love. This is the Female Solution.
Good afternoon, peace and love. I am Michelle Renee, the host of Education Nation. Welcome to the Female Solution Global Network. The goal of the podcast is to raise awareness about the decline in literacy and examine solutions to the decline. Today, I look forward to talking to a colleague, Professor Jocelyn Turner, a community college instructor, about the current rate of college freshmen who come to college ill prepared. This is Education Nation. Peace and love. I'm Michelle Renee, host of Education Nation, live on the Female Solution Global Network every second and fourth Sunday from 12 p.m. to 1 p.m. The intention of Education Nation is to raise awareness about the literacy crisis and to offer information to combat the problem. The goal is to awaken an army of reading coaches and mentors. You will experience guests who are doing their part in the community to ensure youth in their circles are reading and thinking critically. I look forward to serving you in this capacity. Literacy is freedom, and Education Nation will offer information and strategies to help ensure our young people stay free. All right, so welcome to the show. So in addition to sharing strategies for literacy, I also like to begin each show with giving you some information and evidence that we do have a literacy crisis. So in addition to funding reductions and declining enrollment, colleges across the country are dealing with a new and alarming trend in literacy. According to the 2024 College Board report, 42% of college freshmen perform poorly in critical thinking. 39% lack appropriate writing skills for college and writing skills, and 45% have low emotional intelligence. They're coming to us ill prepared, not to any fault of their own. And there are things that elementary schools and high schools can do, and most of all, parents. It's not a lot that we can do with the schools. They have their own rules and regulations, and they have to, and they are responsible to their funding sources. But as households, as parents, it's time for the village to take our children's education back. We always hear that it takes a village to raise a child. Well, now it's time for the village to kick in. Professors across the country say more Gen Z students are struggling with basic reading skills, and that were once expected at the college level. Their stamina for reading in many cases is because of no child left behind and Common Core. They're required to read more in college, but many of our young people haven't read enough books, full books from beginning to the end. They're reading excerpts of books in school now instead of reading entire text. They're reading excerpts of books and short informational articles. That is Common Core. So according to Fortune magazine, instructors are discovering that new students have extremely poor reading skills, and professors at some colleges have actually lowered their expectations, making um, the required work less difficult, less engaging and rigorous overall, which is not a good thing, because that means we're releasing people into a university where they're not going to be able to um, stand up and do well. And from my experience, for me, it looks like a lack of confidence. Um, they've been accustomed to working on standardized testing only, so they're used to taking tests. There's a lack of comprehension because of that test taking that is required in elementary and high schools, and the stamina for reading has really diminished. Audible books are readily available. Families don't read together anymore. And if you look at many households these days, there are not a lot of books in the household, actual books, but there's a lot of screens. We got iPads, we got tablets, we got cell phones, we got laptops, we got desktops. So there's a lot of screen time, but not actually actual books. Students are increasing their use of AI, and AI is not going anywhere, but they don't know how to ask the higher order questions for AI. They're asking the easy questions so that AI can produce their actual work for them. And that's not the correct use of AI. So they're not being taught how to use AI. So I'm going to bring on a colleague, Jocelyn Turner. She is a tenured faculty member in the communications department at Kennedy King College, and she's a lifelong Southside um, resident. She is guided by the call of Gandhi's that said, "Be the change." She previously served as the academic success coach, where she witnessed how modern culture negatively impacts students' learning capacity and their mental health and their growth potential. These insights now drive her pedagogical mission to develop equitable, relevant instructional design for students and facilitate professional development for faculty, ensuring that the 21st century contexts are centered in modern teaching practices and classroom management. Professor Turner, thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
Is there something that you would like us to know about you that I didn't say?
Absolutely not. I think you were very gracious in your introduction. I guess I tend sometimes to be a bit shy, so I think you got it just about right.
Okay,
Only that I'm a
so
mom to a 5-year-old who is now reading.
oh,
So we
I
might
used
want to
to
put
be a
that in there.
I used to be a mom to a 5-year-old, a bunch of 5-year-olds. I'm a mom to adults now.
Yeah.
It's amazing. And because I'm a mom to adults now, all of my children are readers.
Mhm.
And I don't know why I always call them my children, but they are my adults are readers. And that came because of what we did in their household. The father
Mhm.
and I ensured that we had books in the household. We took them to the bookstore. We spent time in the bookstore. We bought books. We made sure they had a library card updated and they were able to go to the library. We went to the library with them. We read with them in the house. At the time, though, we didn't have so much screen time. And I'm a firm believer, I really believe, because of so much screen time that our children have at an early age. I've seen babies with screens, with they can manage and manipulate a phone and an iPad too well, but they don't have that same kind of zeal for a book.
Mhm.
So part of the reason why I believe that we're having these issues is because young people have too much screen time.
Mhm.
What do you think about that?
I agree with that. I think the screen time is a major concern And just to give a little bit of background context, every generation has to deal with these issues, right? So we're in the generation where we're in the beginning of seeing some new technologies come through. And now we're seeing these technologies just being very inundated in every aspects, every part of our lives. It's intrusive in a way that we don't even sometimes get a choice. And what I mean by that, if you go to your email, the AI is there. When you go to your shopping in your Amazon cart now, the AI is there. So it's almost omniscient in that way. And it becomes a part of life in a way that we're not even questioning it, because it's just there. You don't even have to choose it. They have it set up where it's just there. And so when we talk about the younger generations, like for my generation before me, there are some things that we would rightfully choose. I don't need this. I don't want this,
Yeah.
And I think it's different for the generations after this when it's just right there. So they don't know that it's anything else. And so when we talk about the younger generation, we have to remember this is the world that they were born in.
Mm-hmm.
So these are the circumstances that they were born into. We also have to remember that the pioneers of these technologies, their children do not, or they did not, because they have adult children now, young adult children, they did not use these technologies.
Mm-hmm.
They did not. Be very clear, Steve. Mark Zuckerberg said, "Oh, screen." Now he has Facebook kids for your kids, for other people's children, but his children, he said he wants them to play outside and read Dr. Seuss.
Yeah.
Steve. Gates used to talk about how they couldn't have a laptop. They had to sit at dinner and talk about philosophy. Steve Jobs even mentioned that at one time. Elon Musk, we know he has almost a football team of children. And even though he's not in a collective family with those children, he doesn't want his kids to use the screen. In fact, he was trying to build a school in Texas at one time. It didn't go through all the way, there were some issues.
Right.
But it was supposed to be a school where it was supposed to be less tech and students just learn life skills, right? And so the screens are an issue. We're inundated with them, whether we want to or not. And I do know that the American Academy of Child Psychiatry were saying something. They reported that between the ages of 8 and 18, these kids are on the screen 7.5 hours a day. That's the average. That's a job.
Yes, it is. But
That's a job.
part of the reason is that many schools don't even have textbooks anymore.
Mm-hmm.
They have ebooks. They're working online. So if they're online at school all day, and how many hours are they in school? From 9 to 3, approximately, right? And then they come home and they're also having screen time. So it's just way too much. And we're wondering why students are being labeled with ADHD and all kinds of of um of 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 things that says that their attention spans are not as 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 um as fast as it needs to be, and that's part of the problem. And the other problem is our children are not reading actual entire text. So what are your thoughts about college freshmen who struggle? The fact that they come to college in their first year, that many, not all, many are just ill-equipped and ill-prepared for that first year of college.
Yeah. Again, we have to go back to what's happening in society. And myself, I have to say, as an instructor, I had to do a hard awakening, because I think it's convenient to say what the students are, how they are and things like that, which is true. But, as a literary instructor, it's the classic story of Frankenstein. We talk about Frankenstein all the time. If you never read the book, you don't know that Frankenstein is the doctor, not the monster. So there's always
and you don't know that the monster is not really a monster. He's a kind and gentle soul.
But the monster that book is a very interesting conversation because it was written in the late 1800s, and it asks the classic question: do you blame the doctor for creating this? Right? Do you blame the quote unquote monster for being what he was created to be?
And like you said a few minutes ago, the monster is the doctor.
Right.
Nobody looks at the doctor as being the monster.
Yeah, right. And so when we think of the literacy crisis, we hear that word often, but I think in America, our language construct, and we got a news cycle, we love the word crisis, even when we use it, out of context. But I'm saying that to say, these are, I think, symptoms of the opportunity cost we didn't know to measure of modern living. So I'm saying these things that shouldn't come to be. I don't think there were generations was like, I'm just gonna wake up and be illiterate. I'm just gonna, because I don't have nothing to do. Because I don't have nothing to do but just stay in school 13 years on a public dollar, can't read, see cat. I'm gonna just do that on purpose. I just think these are, symptoms of wider societal issues, infrastructural issues, and things like that. We did not know the opportunity cost. I cannot think of this man's name. I do not want to try to say it and butcher it, but he was one of the early co-founders of Facebook. He and Zuckerberg parted ways, but he has an anti-technology campaign that he kind of travels and does speaking engagement. He does other humanitarian and philanthropic work. And what he said was, we did not know when we started. It was literally started as this, way modern linear connection, and it does, it does do that. The product does do that. It does connect people and things like that. But what we could not measure were these opportunity costs that we are seeing happen in society. And I think, in America particularly, right? Because we in America. So we have to talk about America. We have to talk about capitalism corrupts. Anything well-intentioned, when capitalism happens, it kind of becomes corrosive. And it just kind of messes up things. And I think that's also part of the issue too. Comparison to when you look at countries like China, Japan, they've always been eons ahead of us with some of their technological advancements.
Yes.
But they also hire like 2 million people to screw up their internet daily to, keep certain messages from coming out.
Right. There's no filters on AI here right now. AI has no rules, no guidelines. But when students are being tested, when they take tests, they turn that whole internet and AI off. They're not able to use it when they're being tested. We have nothing like that. It's just there. There's no filters, no guidelines, no protocol. And parents usually use AI. Usually use the internet and the screen time and games and stuff to keep their children interested. So parents did not know that having your child on the screen at 2 years old or before was going to cause this type of damage to their intellectualism and their emotional intelligence and their attention spans when they went to school. They had no idea. But now that we know, what do we do about it? How do we ensure that the next group of college students coming in as freshmen are not having a literary issue?
And so the thing is, and you talked about parents, which is, I think, is important and factor to consider when we talk about this illiteracy crisis, because one of the biggest conversations that we had a few years ago was when about the millennial generation. And that is because they're one of the most studied generations. They were kind of came up. There was that first generation we were able to publicly see as a whole, all generations. Kind of coming up. So they kind of got that hit for being very self-centered, and they're all about their technology and this, that. And we saw it in more ways than one. But again, this was the situation that they were born in, right? And now they have had children, right? And in some case, their children have had children, right? So we have a quite a few generations that we can kind of look at, living generations, and try to make sense of what we're experiencing here. The solution is, and I'm also saying that to say, what does that mean? That means parenting has fundamentally changed, right? And so you talked about, reading books in your family, right? But at the time you were raising your children, you weren't living in a society where you had all the things. And you weren't living in a society where if you didn't have all the things, you had this messaging telling you were lesser, you're not good enough, you're not having issues with FOMO, fear of missing out, coming out. You didn't have this additional, what I like to call noise, filtering your decision making, and how you, not only that, how you lead your life. Social media has us in a chokehold where we'll say, I saw a video about this before we say, I talked to someone about this, or I read a book about this. Right. So when we talk about solutions, we have to look at solutions as something that would be rooted in a significant culture change. And a lot of times we don't want to have that conversation because the reality is culture change is slow and hard.
Yes.
I do know that I have been reading stories, particular after COVID, because a lot of people, we experience that hard reset as a society. But at the same time, right after we got out of COVID, we have more financial technological products then. And now we have AI. So our societal changes are happening fast.
Yes, it is.
They said,
and it's happening fast, but we're not really paying attention to the impact that these changes are having on our children. Whose responsibility is it? And then once we discover whose responsibilities it is, what can that person or that group do? Something needs to be done. We know we have a problem. So why we know we have a problem. So what can be done about it?
So what I mentioned COVID because the point I was getting at was one of the things that kind of happened after COVID was there have been clusters across the world and in America where communities had, they had kind of decided to come back together. Like, for example, I know during COVID, there were some kids, they missed the prom. So there were communities and parents coming together. They were doing the prom parades where people could not come in, but the kids, and it was like a caravan, right? That is ingenuity, a culture shift. What was also happening was parents were doing pods with one another to take care of the children.
Okay.
That was kind of a new practice because we put the schools in daycare. We put the kids in school unless you got a family member taking care of them. After COVID, there were reports that a lot of parents switched to homeschool. They felt like the online or remote. They felt like the online learning, like particularly for the smaller children, was just too much. You want them to sit in front of a computer screen, for all of this time. So I was reading where there were some communities and just mothers, hey, it's a community. It's 3 smaller kids in the community. Maybe on this day, such a keep them for a few hours, and we're going to do reading and this and this and this. And maybe on another day, such and such is going to keep the babies, and maybe we'll do nature and science together. So after COVID, there were some communities that I were reading about just across America and across the world, even though it was deciding maybe we need to pull back, right? Because we were forced to pull back during COVID. And maybe we need to figure out how we need to have a different approach with our children. And these were community driven things, not top down, not the school changing, not the government saying we need to do this or do this, but people in their community saying, you know what, maybe we need to try a different approach.
Yeah, we do need to figure out a different approach. The thing is, I'm in a lot of conversations about the problem. And as we keep talking about the problem and figuring out different approaches and what to do about the problem, our children are growing. They don't stop growing at all. So, um, something we need to do something now. What can we tell people to do now? As a matter of fact, a college freshman, if a young person knows that they want to go to college, what can they do to
Yeah.
ensure that their freshman year is successful? If the
Oh,
freshman year is successful, then the years after will also more likely be successful. What can a person entering college do right now to ensure that they have a successful year?
again, culture, culture, culture. I have to say that. I have to say that. Thomas Edison said, a lot of people miss opportunities because it's dressed in overalls and looks like work, right?
Mm-hmm.
Our college students are not prepared to deal with the life of a mind. So if a freshman came in and they understood that the exertion of them learning didn't mean something was wrong with them because they got to work hard, and they can kind of
Yeah.
get into learning how to build their skill, right? Because so much of learning is habit. You have to have the habits to learn the things.
Yeah.
You have to have the habit to learn the things to figure out what you're good at and what you're bad at, right?
Yeah.
You have to
Mm-hmm.
learn it is no sometimes. You are
Mm-hmm.
wrong sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
And that
Mm-hmm.
means that you are wrong about the thing, not that there's something wrong for you. Because a lot of
Mm-hmm.
times the students today, they don't know how to take constructive criticism. They don't know how to take, feedback, right?
Mm-hmm.
And also helping students understand that learning is an experience, right?
Yeah.
If you fail
Mm-hmm.
a class, it's not the end of the world, right? If you
Right.
have a tough
Mm-hmm.
conversation with a professor, it's not the end of the world. You have to take all of these pieces of your learning journey to create a whole, because
Yeah.
all of that is part of your holistic learning experience, not just the content of your academics.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That
Yeah.
has to be impressed upon them,
Mm-hmm.
because they're taught in such a binary that if something is wrong, it's them, right?
It's them. Yeah.
It's not. It's just that that thing was wrong, and how do we come back from that? And how do we,
Yeah.
move forward? How do we decision make? How do we problem solve?
Yeah.
Those types of executive functioning things, the
Mm-hmm.
students really have to learn to embrace as
Yeah.
part of their learning experience, as much as it is the academic content.
You're right. There's a couple of comments. Naima Latif says homeschooling helped parents realize the school curriculum didn't really prepare our children for life skills,
Mhm,
and she's right about that.
mhm,
It forced parents to become involved. When
mhm,
we put our children in school, we kind of give that educational right over to somebody else, and we don't understand that it's also we're the first teachers, so we have to remain part of our children's education all throughout their elementary school and high school.
mhm,
And she also has a question: how are U.S. schools comparing to other countries? The U.S. is is far behind other countries in literacy. If so, why is the U.S. far
mhm,
behind? Well, studies show that we are behind, and we have been behind for quite a while. The reasons are vast. There are a number of reasons. Um, Part of the reason is that parenting has changed. Another part of the reason is that school requirements has changed. Something happened when No Child Left Behind was implemented, and schools were focused on um, on tests, but we were behind way before that. And then we got further behind once Common Core was implemented, and only excerpts of books were re- required in schools, in elementary schools and high schools. So there are a number of reasons why we are behind. And unfortunately, the more time we take to talk about the problem, our children are growing, and they are being passed along, and they're still behind. So I'm thinking we need to just get parents more involved and families more involved. What are you doing? What am I doing with the children in my family? One thing I do is every young person in my family that is in preschool, I teach them how to read. So by the time they get to kindergarten, they are reading. That's what I do. But I can't save the world. I can't even save my family, but the one thing that I can do is I can ensure that the young people in my family are reading. That's what I can do.
Great day, Sugar.
What are you doing?
Yeah. Yeah.
So how do you help the freshmen that you encounter? What type of issues do they have, and how do you help them push through those issues?
Yeah. The main thing, so let me just again, I have to go back, right? Um, I was born in 80, right? I think Black History Month was so because this year is the 100th year of the country celebrating Black history.
Yeah.
So if you go back to the annals of history, we got people like W.E.B. Du Bois, who wrote the Black Almanac, because he was really the first Black sociologist to really put our stuff on the books as a culture, right? Prodigy Woodson came along and said, you know what, we're American too, and we have a unique story on this soil. We need to have this celebrated in 1926. Fast forward, we're 100 years later.
Yeah.
Now, it was initially Black History Week. It turned to Black History Month, right? So I think it was in the late 70s Black History Month was established. Because I was born in 80, I'm really that first kind of generation when we're going into school and we're singing that everywhere. Like, it's really pushed, right? We just lost Jesse Jackson. And I remember in my morning class, we had to say, I am somebody. That was part of our upbringing. We had to say, Usini Perkins, hey, Black child, do you know who you are? Do you know who you really are? Do you know you can be who you want to be if you try to be what you can be, right?
Back to the basics.
That's what was instilled in me, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
That is the spirit that I take into my classroom. So I have to have a conversation that's not focused on the deficits. You have to know that you are somebody and that you can be who you want to be if you try to be.
Right.
Who you can be, right?
That's right.
You got to do some trying, right? Who you can be, right? I encourage failure. I encourage learning, persistence, and resilience. And because I'm really focused on my focus is developmental education, I'm dealing with students who the reality is people would question, why are you here? Why are you in the deficits are so acute, right? And I've been doing this for years. So on one hand, I can sit and say the reality is I've done this long enough to kind of know when I'm sitting in the classroom who's gonna make it, who is not gonna make it, right?
Yes.
But I also have learned, regardless of what it is, this is the type of messaging that I want to give my students, right? You may not be good at this, but I hope you are committed to yourself in a way that you give yourself a chance, give yourself the platform, the room to at least begin to discover yourself, right? It's okay to decide you don't like a certain subject or certain things are not for me, right? It's okay to even decide that college is not for you, but don't count yourself out before you give yourself a chance, right? So the foundation of everything I do with my students is building routines, developing rigor, and relationships, the 3 R's. That's been my mind. Yes. So in all of the curriculum I develop and all of my instructional approach, it's making sure I'm hitting on those 3 R's: routine, relationships, and rigor.
Okay, so it's time for a commercial break. And when we come back, I want to go back a bit, and I want you to explain, why do you encourage errors and mistakes?
Okay.
Go back to that.
Great day. It's your girl Asada, here to introduce a new female solution show called Asada Says. That's right. Every month we're going to talk about everything I am, from cryptocurrency and financial security to good health and parenting strategies. Come on and talk with me every Tuesday morning from 7 a.m. to 8 a.m. And let's do that thing the way Asada says it should be done. See you then. Peace, right here on the Female Solution.
Okay. So let's go back a bit. Why do you encourage failure?
It's an important part of learning.
Why? How?
It's an important part of learning because it's part of brain development and brain rewiring, right? It's part of students learning executive functioning, how to prioritize tasks, how to develop persistence, how to develop grit. It's important for students to develop metacognition and critical thinking, because if you don't review, you don't have the capacity to analyze and properly evaluate, right? It's better for deepened understanding and retention. The old school rule is repetition is the mother of retention. So you have to consistently revisit things in order for it to stick, right?
Yes.
So, and then also the biggest thing is you have to learn who you are through failure. The problem is a lot of our young people are so unsure of themselves because they have not been tested. They have learned that they're great. So the moment a mistake happens, the moment they mess up, it's existential. They did not get the early reasoning, this too shall pass. Or they didn't have the conversation after something happened where, oh, I'm sorry this happened, but what did you learn from it, right? They did not get all of those conversations. So they really don't know what to do with all of that anxious energy. So I have to teach my students that if you get a bad grade or if you have a negative outcome, that doesn't mean this is you're negative or you're bad, because that's how they internalize that messaging, right? Oh, I got a bad grade on the essay. Particularly if it's something that they really struggle in, right? It's a book that came out back in the day, The College Fear Factor. And I love that textbook because there's the chapter that explains the writing classroom is the most feared classroom at every college campus.
And you know why?
The whole world. Not just America, the whole world.
Yes. We have to be very critical of their writing, because in order for them to write well, they have to understand their mistakes. And in understanding their mistakes and getting accustomed to getting that feedback and being allowed to do over and redo, make better, that's really where the learning comes from.
Yes. And so this generation is terribly anxious. You know, that book that came out a couple of years ago, I can't think of the author's name, but it was called The Anxious Generation. He talks about these as part of factors why these students are so anxious. They can't have a conversation. So a student will go tell the advisor on their teacher before they talk to the teacher. They just don't know how to handle that type of problem solving in relationship. So me talking to students about having hard conversations. In my FS class, I teach FS at my work, and at my work, it's one of the lowest literacy levels that is offered to students. And I showed them this video at the beginning of class by Maria Folio, and it calls "Everything is Figure Outable." It's not a concept that they understand, right? All these things are not static. There's a great part of life, you know what I'm saying? That is consistently figure outable. So I try to talk about mistakes as a norm, not something that happens and it's supposed to, set you out. I have to tell them the quote from Thomas Edison that he says, I didn't make, mistakes. I learned 10,000 ways not to do a thing. So I kind of normalize it to kind of take that angst off. That they internalize as a deficit in their person, which is that they've never learned learning skills, because learning requires a skill.
Yes, it does. Yes, it is a skill. Yeah. And the one way that I get students to get accustomed to me giving them feedback is my first few classes, I allow them to give me feedback. They can tell me what I did that didn't work for them, what they think I can do better. And if they can give me feedback, then they're more comfortable with me giving them feedback. Because one thing that in order for me to help them become a better writer, they got to get used to the feedback. Instead of thinking, okay, I'm pouring my heart out on this piece of paper or document, and then I'm uploading it into our learning management system, and that's it. So they think that's it. They don't, they expect to get an A from that because they put their time and pouring their heart out. So in order for them to accept my feedback, I allow them to give me feedback. And they give good feedback too, by the way.
Oh, I know. I allow my students to give it to me too, but they usually give it to me at the end of the class. And I have learned that in higher education, it seems like you and we're braving new waters because professors, we don't like getting feedback.
We don't like getting feedback, but but that is normal. Most people or human beings don't like getting feedback on their work. But I know that if I have to give my students feedback, and they don't want it, they don't want it. They are offended by it. They don't want any parts of it. So the easiest thing that I found to do is to allow them to give me feedback first. And then they accept my feedback, believe it or not.
But that's an example of you, again, culture shifting.
Yes.
Developing a routine in your classroom, right? Developing relationships in your classroom, right? They don't want to have a relationship with you if they can't trust you, right? So that's their way of dealing with that. And I think it's impossible if you're teaching Black and brown students not to understand the importance of that.
Yeah.
I think in a utopian society, we will be free of certain historical weights, but unfortunately, we're not. And I'm saying to say, when you're talking about Black and brown students, that trust factor is important. Yes. Because of the history of the power differential, right? What are you going to do with this power, over me, right? A lot of these students are shocked because they already was in school 12 years, 13 years. And now you're telling me I'm illiterate? I would be shocked too. There were no checks and balances, before that, to let me know or to help me along the way. That's existential unfolding, because now the college instructor is the boogeyman because you're the one telling me I'm stupid. That's how they
Yeah.
internalize it, right? Before this, I was passing. I got A's, I got B's, I got C's. You sure
Mhm.
it's not you? So I
Mhm.
had to realize that's what it was. And for a student in our, when you're growing up, you want that badge of honor to say,
You
I've
do.
done well in school.
You do.
Blacks and browns
Mhm.
have always traditionally been for education. So one thing I do is bust that myth about what black and brown people don't like. I'm like, that's historically not factual. Okay,
Mhm.
it's
Mhm.
historically not factual. We have
Mhm.
always known
Mhm.
that literacy was a way out and a way too. Because
Yeah.
historically for us, it was illegal for us to do it. Like,
Yes.
it was
Yes.
illegal
Yes.
for you
Yes.
to read. It was illegal for you to
Mhm.
learn. Why learn? Because you're a beast of burden. The quality of your mind does not matter. So all of these historical contexts and factors, I think, also play into the modern classroom, depending on who you're teaching. So I think
Mhm.
you introducing that is an important part of that culture shift. And even when we can't change systems,
Yeah.
those instructors who are woke, and you get it, because the
Yeah.
revolution is televised, as
Yeah.
you know, if you can't change the school, you can change your classroom, right?
Absolutely.
How are you changing your academic freedom, right?
Mhm.
I teach a course that's with a half failure rate. I don't
Mhm.
change my standards though,
Mhm.
because I realized even those students that fail, they were introduced to it. So they had
Right.
exposure,
Right.
right? The
Right.
students that successfully complete the process, they had the opportunity to go through the entire gambit of it and take it with
Yes.
them.
Yes.
So I
Mhm.
think we just have to kind of teach these kids that. And I think we have to, as instructors, kind of be aware of ourselves, because I think it's proximity. If you
Mhm.
see something over and over and over and over and over again, you're going to think it's just bad or it's just horrible too. And sometimes I think as instructors, we got to kind of take a break ourselves and look at a panoramic view and kind of understanding it's not us. These are bigger issues, so that we can kind of make decisions for ourselves about how we want to choose to show
Yes.
up in the classroom if we're still going to work in education.
Yes. Absolutely. So our time is just about over. So is there one thing that you want to leave, one thought that you'd like to leave us with? What is the
Yeah,
impact of freshman students coming to college ill
yeah,
prepared? One
yeah. Well,
one last thought.
yeah, one last thought I would just say is don't blame them for the unpreparedness. I would encourage any parent, if you have a student that's college age and they're going into higher education,
Mhm.
help encourage them with their decision making and problem solving skills. They
Okay.
have to learn to trust themselves. They have to learn resilience. They have to learn persistence. They have to
Mhm.
be given spaces where they learn the capacities of their own mind, so they can learn
Mhm.
to trust themselves. They have
Mhm.
to learn that everybody in this entire world has to make decisions, and this is the thing, right? And then also encourage a culture of instructors who are really concerned about these things to connect more. A
Yeah.
lot of times what we're experiencing, we also internalize it. We feel like it's just us. And we do know the things. We're reading the data. We're looking at the
Mhm.
information. And sometimes it just feels overwhelming and hopeless, right?
Yes, it does. Mhm.
And so talk to each other, right? I can't change all the things. I can't change what they're doing with the placement test. I can't, but when I go to my classroom, right? When I
Mhm.
know who I am, my person, maybe this is one thing I could implement, right? Maybe
Mhm.
this is one new resource I can try, right?
Mhm.
Because as instructors, sometimes we get all the new bells and whistles, and then that's overwhelming to us because that's not, our person. So the
Yeah.
scaffolding is good for us too, right? Try one new thing, right?
Mhm.
Talk to a
Mhm.
colleague who you respect to get ideas, because the
Mhm.
reality is for us, this is going to be a norm. Um,
Right.
every 2-3 years, they change in learning management systems. They change in the technological
Mhm.
school. So upskilling and continuous learning is a something that's going to be expected of all of us. So I
Mhm.
really encourage instructors to bring back that sense of community. And lastly, for parents, I really encourage parents to bring back that sense of community, right? I told my friend, I said, it's a lot of stuff going on in the country. And I said, it dawned on me that I live in a neighborhood. I don't know my neighbors. I grew up knowing my neighbors, right?
Yeah.
Somebody who I can commune with. I grew up going over my friend's house. I'm going over someone's house, go do my homework. That was my experience. Do the kids even have those experiences, right? The parents have to create community, because we have to start creating those third spaces for our kids to figure out, not feeling responsible, because parents are overwhelmed because we feel like we have to manage every part of their lives. But if we were to create community, we can kind of get back to those old school values that have been proven over the test of time, that this is what works. So I think if everybody kind of goes to what was good about each of our generations and have community surrounding the idea of those things, I think we can start seeing the needle move in a positive direction.
Awesome. I love that. I love that, actually. Thank you so much for being my guest this week. I appreciate your insight and your perspectives.
Thank you so much. This was a learning experience. Fun.
This is definitely a new skill that I'm learning. I get better at it every week, but it's something that I was asked to do, and I think it's important. It's time to help parents be parents of children that come from high achieving homes. That's the goal, to ensure that more of our households become high achieving homes for our young people.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. And I look forward to more conversations.
You had one last thought. You said, I think what?
I'm saying I think your work is important, bringing these new conversations forth.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I appreciate you.
Until the next time.
Okay, bye. Literacy is freedom, and we have a literacy crisis. Children should learn to read from pre-K to 3rd grade. They should practice reading from 4th to 6th grade, and they should read to learn beginning in 7th grade and continuing through 4th grade. This video is sponsored by Rico Nance and Chemistry Steak and Brunch House in Hyde Park, Chicago. Okay, so what can we tell families this time? What's the tip this week to tell families how they can ensure that they have high achieving homes? I'm suggesting that parents help their children figure out what their passion is. And in finding their passion, they have a level of self-discovery and confidence and purpose that they did not have before. Enroll them in different classes. Help them figure it out. It's our job. And supporting their interests also strengthens the parent-child bond, and it helps children develop their own unique identity, making it easy for them to push forward in academics. So, what is Howard's theory of multiple intelligence? Can you give us that?
Yeah, when we think about Howard's theory of multiple intelligence, this suggests that intelligence is not a single ability, but it's a collection of different types of intelligence which each person has the capacity for. This theory, it indicates that everyone has different strengths and learning styles across these areas. One type of learning style could be a logical mathematical style where your child's strength is in numbers, working with mathematics. And they love numbers. He's a logical thinker. They reason well, and they are problem solvers.
Yes, and another intelligence is verbal linguistic. These are the ones who like words. They would be your writers and your poets and your teachers. They think in words. They like to read and they love to write. They will be proficient in language if you introduce them to other languages. So the practical applications, parents, what can a parent do? They can read with their children. If your child is a verbal linguistic, read with them, help them create stories, play word games.
Yes.
That's really good. And for me, I love
Oh, yeah,
the
I didn't.
style for music.
Okay,
Why? Because
okay,
music,
okay.
it helps to create cognition. It improves your cognition. And those who love music, they understand melody.
Mhm,
They get into the rhythms, and they can discern pitch and sound. And so, how can you help to nurture that in your child? Hey, why not make instruments?
mhm,
And you can use mathematical equation to help to measure it out, and come up with projects where they can make entries or learn a dance or
mhm.
write a poem which feeds into their linguistic skills, their
Yeah.
language skills.
And put music to that poem. So if your
Yeah.
child is a spatial learner, then these are the children that's going to be your surgeons in the future, and your nurses, and your architects, and your pilots. Even they visualize pictures in 3D. They
Mhm.
do well as a daydreamer. Believe it or not, it's interesting how spatial learning and daydreaming. Your child could be a surgeon or a pilot. That's interesting, but to help them with that, I help them build forts with Legos. Legos are really good for spatial learners. Help them, give them chalk to draw on the sidewalk, and help them use maps and puzzles. Those are good to help to build your child's skill if they are spatial learners.
Yeah, and so another one, if they are interpersonal learners, they would make good social workers, leaders in politics and communications. It would be a really big piece for them. Team players, they are great as team players, okay? And they are strong leaders.
Yeah.
So how to support your baby in that is to arrange playtime where you encourage them in sports, put them in sports, and participate in community service things with them. They will love the idea of being and working around other kids and
And
people.
we have intrapersonal
Hmm.
intelligences. Aquila just mentioned, you just mentioned interpersonal. So
Hmm.
I want to talk about intrapersonal intelligence. These will be your psychologists and your philosophers and your ministers, even. They understand themselves. They are disciplined, and they are goal orientated. They're independent. So then they will be able to help others also because they understand themselves so well. So to help this type of learner, provide them time, quiet space for journaling. Allow them
Hmm.
to have time to read and
Hmm.
to play independently. This builds their intrapersonal skills. They are
Yeah.
the children who can play by themselves and never be bored.
And remember to encourage your child to explore a variety of activities because
Yeah.
you're learning where their
Hmm.
learning styles are, where their
Hmm.
intelligence. And so get
And
with
they may
them.
have more than one. It's
They
possible to
may
have
have
more
more.
than one.
Yeah. Yes.
So
And let
we
them
don't want
try
to
new
forget
things.
about the kinesthetic learners. These are the
Mhm,
ones who will be your athletes and your dancers and your actors. Even they
mhm,
have
mhm.
control over body movements more than anybody else. They have a lot of physical energy, and they're skilled with their hands and using their hands. So to help a kinesthetic learner, you want
Mhm,
to help them create an obstacle course, even
mhm.
not just play in an obstacle course, but create an obstacle course. They can play charades, and you can incorporate all type of bodily movement into even the chores that they do every
And
day.
and Michelle, let's not forget about the naturalistic,
Mm-hmm.
that intelligence, because that was the one that create our farmers and our horticulturalists. These are
Mm-hmm.
the ones that are sensitive to the world around them, and
Mm-hmm.
they're the ones that's gonna keep us fed. Yeah,
That's right. That's right. That's
and
right.
so
So I'm sorry.
go
There are
go.
many critics to multiple intelligences. As a matter of fact, there are critics about every type of learning style or learning tool strategy that we use. And we've been arguing about it too long. Let's stop arguing about it now. Let's just get started.
Mm-hmm.
We have a literacy crisis. What can we do? We can do everything, one thing at a time. Teaching your children, helping them find their intelligence, helping them find what their passion is only one thing. It's only one. We got to start somewhere. Let's just start now.
Yeah, and once you find out what their passion is, you, mom, dad, will feel you won't feel out of place, anxious, or whatever, and feeling that you are not adequate enough to help them, because you are, because they are going to take it and run with it, because it's in a place that's interesting to them, that
That's right.
they want to learn out of
That's right.
that particular mode
That's
of
right.
style. So
Yes.
don't be afraid to tackle it and to look deep into your child and see different ways that you can engage them in
That's
learning.
right. And for every individual person, our passion and our purpose is what we love, what we feel strongly about, what we can do as an adult without getting paid for it. My work is not work for me because I love it. And so children need to find what they love. And we need to focus. We need to do some intentional things to help them find out what they love. And that will motivate them. That will increase their capacity as far as academics is concerned. So what we need to do is enroll them in different workshops and courses in the park district, after school programs, or wherever. But you can also just do a basic Google search and find a free multiple intelligence test. They're everywhere. There's some that are specific for children.
But we know that our time is running down, but we want to just really invite you all into our world, into our space, and come and join us, because we'll be showing up quite frequently now. And let's
Yeah.
talk about it, and let's see what kind of solutions can we, because we got the answers. If we got a problem, we got the answer to that problem. So
And look
let's,
for our book. It's coming soon.
yes.
The Trust Parental Safeguards. It'll be available soon. And we're going to share these tips with you in that book. And we
Yeah.
can talk about it here on Education Nation.
Yay. Yeah.
So thank you. Thank you for listening to this episode of Education Nation. And if you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to the channel, leave us a comment, and share on your social media. And I'll see you in 2 weeks.
Women have the power to transform this world. We can end crime and violence if we all agree to do one thing: share. Let's share our wisdom, share our time, share our talents, share our finances, but most of all, let's share our love. This is the Female Solution.